Few places on Earth can match the splendor of Yunnan province in China. In the southwest corner of this vast country, the region has some of the most spectacular scenery imaginable. From the beautiful Jade Dragon Snow Mountain, down to the magnificent Yangtze River, and into vast canyons and valleys, the area offers almost every type of geographical feature. In the northwest of the province lies Lijiang, a United Nations World Heritage Site. The ancient city provides a unique glimpse into Yunnan's past. But at the start of the new millennium, the city and the incredible landscape around it has become the center of attention for a new type of visitor.
Teams made up of the world's greatest adventure races were preparing to take on the challenge of Lijiang in a unique sporting event, the Outdoor Quest. During 4 days, which would challenge them to the limit, the teams of 4, which must include both sexes, take on 7 different disciplines, which demand both individual excellence and teamwork. There's trail running through some of the toughest terrain on Earth. Mountain biking that includes climbs, technical sections and exhilarating descents. On the water, there's kayaking and a unique challenge of paddling in native boats. In the team biathlon, 4 athletes have to cover a section of the course using just 2 bikes, while the adventure skills calls for courage and steady nerves. And finally, there's the technically challenging discipline of inline skating.
Over the past months, athletes around the world have been training hard for the event, from the sun-kissed beaches of California to the tropical climes of Malaysia, from the Pyrenees to the hills outside Beijing. From Finland in the north to New Zealand in the south, and from San Francisco in the west to Shanghai in the east, adventure racing's elite have been preparing for the challenge. For most of the teams taking part in the race, Hong Kong is the rendezvous point before flying out to Lijiang. For one party in particular, this will be a very special meeting place. Veteran adventure racers Barry Siff and Liz Caldwell are based in Fort Collins, Colorado, in the USA's beautiful Rocky Mountains. Having secured a place in the Outdoor Quest as Team Friction Free, they were looking for 2 other athletes to make up their foursome, and thanks to a series of emails, they found them more than 7,000 miles away in Christchurch, New Zealand.
Okay. How's that? Fine.
Triathlon legends Scott Molina and Erin Baker took up the American pair's offer of a place on the team, and now 5 months after their first internet contact, they're about to meet for the first time.
Nice to meet you. Erin, hi.
Erin, I'm Barry.
Oh, Barry, hi, nice to meet you. That's it. Hi.
Our team.
Hi, great.
Crazy.
Excellent.
Oh.
Definitely fun. I'm happy about that.
And the skating?
I'm so bad. I have tried. I have really tried.
Amidst the excitement of check-in for the charter flight to Lijiang, there's a chance for others to meet friends old and new as the tons of equipment are loaded into the hold. As the athletes settle down for the 3-hour flight to Lijiang, thoughts are already turning to the race. Though for a few, the customs and immigration paperwork is already providing the first major challenge.
Not even born yet. Somebody who's not even born yet.
But not every team was on board the flight to Lijiang. In Dali, the venue for the previous 2 outdoor quests, coach Paul Huddle was facing a difficult decision. Who would make the final roster for Team Mild 7, Asia's leading adventure racing team? At the end of a 40-day training camp, 6 athletes are competing for 4 berths. The 2 racers to miss out would have to settle for a place on Team Beijing's self-discovery. The The only worry for the coach had been a wrist injury to Jiang Bo, one of the twin brothers in the squad, both of whom had made last year's team. But with the wrist now looking in good shape, all 6 athletes have one final chance to show just how good they are.
Become a big happy family, so it's not an enjoyable situation to have to say, okay, you two are going to have to not make the sort of A team and the rest of you will make it, because they're all great athletes, they're all great people, we've had a great time together, and any one of them would give their heart and soul to whatever team they're going to race on. Inchi, get in.
Finally, it's decision time.
Yeah, there you go. So the team, as both Rock and I see it, is going to be Haibo, Jiangbo, Yinqi, and Hongju.
For Chanlin and Fenling, there is disappointment. But they'll still be heading to Lijian with a strong team and looking forward to racing against their friends and rivals.
Doesn't matter to me which team we were selected for, as we were good friends before and we're still good friends after.
We live in the same room, we eat together, and whatever happens during the race, that won't change. There will be competition, but also friendship.
As the friendly rivals of Team Mild 7 and Team Beijing Self-Discovery began the short road journey from Dali to Lijian, the rest of the athletes were arriving on their charter flight at one of the world's most scenic airports. After months of preparation by athletes and organisers, the guests were about to receive their first taste of the warmth and enthusiasm of the local people.
For first-timers and race veterans alike, the welcome was a colourful reminder that the outdoor quest is about cultural experience as well as athletic excellence.
It's really beautiful. Wow. Oh, it's overwhelmed.
The hills, the people, wonderful.
C'est joli! Wow. What do you think?
Well, he took an extra loop, so we saw the whole area. It was great. I mean, a lot of mountains, so we know what we're up for. Hey.
For many of the teams who had travelled thousands of miles to be in Lijiang, the arrival ceremony had provided the perfect tonic to any jet lag. As the local population celebrated long into the night outside the athletes' hotel, the racers themselves were making final checks to their equipment. In just a few hours' time, the longest, hardest, and most challenging outdoor quest would begin.
Early morning in the old city of Lijian. "23 teams, 92 participants, plenty of hopes and dreams. The first day takes in mountains, rivers, lakes, and some tough trail running. Even the very best won't be back in their hotels until dusk. For For the people of Lijian, the sights and sounds are new. For the contestants, it's a last moment of calm. And at 8 o'clock sharp, the outdoor quest is underway, with the athletes making their way up the main street of the old city. Last year's champions, Team Nokia Adventure, lead the way out of the gate.
Day one consists of a course of 149 kilometers, starting with a run and adventure test around Lijiang's old city, followed by 9.7 kilometers of mountain biking to Lasha Lake. Then it's across the lake in native boats, with bikes on board, and a cycle up and over the hills before the athletes can enjoy a fast descent to the Yangtze River. At Shugu Harbour, there's a 2-kilometre adventure skills section before they take to the water for a 45-kilometre kayak downstream. After 3 hours on the water, there's a short run to the famous Tiger Leaping Gorge. Then it's back on the bikes for a 31-kilometre ride to the final transition. The final leg is a grueling 10.5-kilometre hill run to the finish at the Yunnan temple.
But all that lies ahead. The first problem of the first day is to fill a bucket with water from Lijian's famous canals. All very simple, except the buckets are full of holes, and the teams have chewing gum, tape, and fingers to plug the gaps. The key to success is plugging the holes from the inside of the bucket. But in the excitement, very few of the teams are thinking clearly. In a time limit of 12 minutes, few teams have solved the puzzle. So it's back through the city to complete the 4-kilometre run in the crisp morning sunshine. There can be no more picturesque venue than the old city. A vision of ancient China that has largely vanished, preserved by both its remoteness and its status as a World Heritage Site. But nothing like the outdoor quest has passed this way before. The Finnish K2 team lead the way up towards the administration complex that overlooks the city. Team Mild 7 are already justifying their reputation as the leading Asian team. They're in the pack behind K2, along with Nokia Adventure, Beaver Creek, Australian Beef, and Beijing Self-Discovery. On the way down through the administration complex, Paul Huddle, who's now acting as an athlete cameraman, gives some valuable advice to the teams that he's filming.
Be careful when you go through the door, be careful. Careful, it's slippery on these bricks up here. Yeah, hold the handles, hold the side, slippery, slippery, slippery. Yeah. After you're off these bricks, it's okay again, it's slippery for a while. Okay, now it gets okay.
With most of the teams having negotiated the slippery cobblestones, it's Terho Latinen's K2 team that reaches the transition area first. Fellow Finns, Nokia Adventure are second, with a host of others including Team Mild 7, Australian Beef and Team Bognan not far behind. As Lijiang fades into the distance, the 23 teams string out along the road to Lasha Lake. At first, the going is flat and fast. Then there's the inevitable off-road rise into the hills. Already the tow ropes are in evidence to help weaker teammates. As the transition approaches, K2 still hold a 30-second lead over Nokia Adventure, with the French team EADS Bow number 2 just a few seconds behind. Waiting at Lasha Lake, a collection of native boats. These are small fishing canoes, and the job of the teams will be to navigate across the 3.8-kilometre breadth of the lake. It should take the best teams less than an hour, provided they don't stop to take in the view. First to arrive are Team K2, but the transition isn't easy. Each team has 2 boats, but these have to contain not only 2 team members, but also 2 bikes. They'll be needed on the other side, and while K2 load up, the rest are starting to arrive in the transition area. So after the second leg, it's K2 in front, but just 46 seconds separate the top 5 teams. With 135 kilometers still to go, the leaders are still jockeying for position, but it won't be long before someone tries to make a break. Day 1 is only an hour old, and the real test is still to come.
Across the wide expanse of Lasha Lake, 46 small canoes head slowly to the far bank. As the sun begins to warm the air, the athletes are able to take just a moment to enjoy their beautiful surroundings. After 50 minutes of paddling, the first teams finally get to shore. Team Australian Beef, number 5, are in the lead, and they start to unload their mountain bikes. Once more, though, the leading pack doesn't give them much of a head start. next stage involves a 35-kilometre bike ride to Shugu Harbour, a little village on the banks of the Yangtze. It comprises a few kilometres of off-road technical riding before a long road section and a sweeping descent of over 1,000 metres. Now is the time to pick up some speed.
By the time they reach the road, Team Beaver Creek have taken the lead from Australian Beef. Probably the best mountain bikers in the race, the descent to the Yangtze River, which involves speeds of 80 kilometers per hour, should provide an opportunity for the Americans to increase their lead. Everyone can capitalize on the speedy descent. There's an unexpected problem for Team K2, as a flat tire takes an age to fix. Elsewhere, defending champions Nokia Adventure also suffer misfortune. A broken chain means a lengthy delay as they slip back into 8th place. For the rest of the teams, this stage is their only chance for a bit of freewheeling on a day where not much comes without hard effort. Shugu is the starting point for a 45-kilometre kayak down the Yangtze to the famous Tiger Leaping Gorge. But before that, there's a 2-kilometre adventure skills section involving a short run to the top of the town and a river wade to the waiting kayaks. With more than 3 hours of paddling ahead, it's important that the teams prepare properly in the transition area. Life vests are obligatory, and the more experienced teams make sure they have plenty of food and water to take with them, all of which has to be carried on the adventure run to the top of the town. Team Beaver Creek lead on, with Australian Beef in the pack behind.
Where's the oxygen?
With Lijiang situated at nearly 3,000 meters above sea level, the air is noticeably thinner, and stair climbing is one of the most exacting activities at altitude.
Venture 4, who are in 5th place at the transition, are one of the best prepared teams in the competition. Not only have they trained at altitude, they've also practiced specific sections of the race before leaving home.
You know, you come off your bike and you cannot walk even a single step. It's like you just fall down, and this first 50 to 100 meters are really tough, and you just need to overcome them, and then you loosen up and you just start to feel great.
Learning to use different muscle groups for different disciplines is part and parcel of adventure racing. But stair climbing isn't exactly the athlete's favourite pastime.
This is brutal. So you will see us in the race, suffering up the stairs, especially at the beginning. You know, it's like your legs are a big, huge clump, and you cannot even lift them up. And then you need to start to slowly to smoothen them up. But the funniest is when you come out of a kayak after 5 hours, then you really cannot walk. Then you are like a drunk person.
But all the training seems to have paid off. While others have been walking, Team Venture 4 have been taking the steps in their stride. Team K2's puncher has put them back to 6th position, and the Finns were now looking to make up for lost time. But it's Team Beaver Creek that reached the top first. Now it's a sharp descent through a temple and back down to the river. The altitude doesn't seem to bother the Americans, all of whom live well above sea level. And with some of the other teams beginning to find it tough, they're increasing their lead.
Very nice people. careful.
At the bottom of the stairs, a suspension bridge spans one of the Yangtze's many small tributaries. From here, it's just a few hundred yards to the kayaks.
With Beaver Creek about to take to the water in their kayaks, the chasing teams are still completing the adventure run. Australian Beef and Eco Internet lead the chasing pack, but they're now almost 4 minutes behind and still have their chilly wade to negotiate. Venture 4 are in 5th place, more than 3 minutes behind 4th placed EADS Bow number 2. But ominously for the leading group, reigning champions Nokia Adventure are making steady progress through the field with the quickest adventure run and have now moved up to 7th position. Beaver Creek's 4-minute lead has given them time to prepare thoroughly for the day's longest stage. If you forget anything now, it's more than 3 hours to the next transition area.
Big parts to the front. Front part to the front. Yeah. Big parts to the front. Okay, good job. Don't twist your ankle. We're doing fine.
Both kayaks have to leave together, and marshals are on hand to make sure life jackets and spray decks are properly fitted. From the first bend of the Yangtze, the river gradually narrows as it heads towards the mountains and the landing area near Tiger Leaping Gorge. There's no white water, but the current is fast flowing and picking the right line will be crucial. As Australian Beef take to the water, they're just 10 seconds behind 2nd placed Eco Internet, but still nearly 4 minutes behind the race leaders, Beaver Creek. The French team, EADS Bow number 2, have been racing impressively so far to claim 4th position, more than 3 minutes ahead of Venture 4. In 6th place is Team K2. As they set off down the Yangtze, Beijing self-discovery with the 2nd placed Asian team behind mile 7 with plenty of action.
With 45 kilometres of river kayaking ahead of them, the strong paddlers of Team Shanghai were hoping to make up some ground on the leaders. But despite the blazing noonday sun, conditions on the Yangtze could still be cool for the teams unless they stayed dry. Cold, wet athletes are less able to perform to their potential, so choosing the right clothing is a vital component of adventure racing. Team Shanghai's final training camp, conducted by legendary adventurer John Howard, had taken them to the wet highlands of Dali. The perfect environment for testing the space-age materials worn by most of the experienced teams.
The Gore-Tex jackets are wonderful because they'll let some of the sweat out and they'll keep the water out, the rain out. So they actually breathe like, almost like human skin. So you stay dry and warm.
Hi guys.
San
Jose pedicab. In the house.
But staying dry and warm wasn't the only challenge posed by the Yangtze. As the chasing teams took to the mighty river, they were in for more than 3 hours of tough paddling.
The swift flow of the river may have helped some of the teams to pick up speed, but for most, like Team Malaysia, the real key to success on the water is technique. At their pre-race training camp in Lumut, the Malaysian quartet were put through their paces in each of the 7 sports.
Feeling that your tights are really hurting.
But kayaking accounts for the lion's share of the technical disciplines, and in Finnish coach Eero Kakko, Team Malaysia had an expert tutor.
People who haven't been kayaking that much and they go for a long kayak, they feel pain on shoulders, hands, especially hands, numbness in fingers, and that means that they are kayaking quite much wrong, because actually the muscles that you are using in a long ultra endurance races and training are the body muscles, the stomach, back, the sides. Try to concentrate that in the end it goes up. There is also a little bit of leg work, but that's again it's kind of like a situation. It speeds you up a little bit, but you know, because you're doing also much of mountain biking and running, you want to relax your legs. So we use the legs a little bit less than you should be doing in kayaking, you know, in general.
Without doubt, the best technique on the water was being applied by the leading 3 teams, headed by Beaver Creek. The local population had turned out in their thousands to watch the race, and the 2 bridges over the Yangtze provided one of the day's best grandstand views. With the kayaking entering its final stretch, the nature of the course began to change. As the blue water of a mountain tributary joined the great swell of the main river, the sloping valleys were becoming steeper as the race headed towards the spectacular Tiger Leaping Gorge. After more than 3 hours of hard paddling and tricky river navigation, it was one of Beaver Creek's kayaks that landed first at the newly constructed pier. But the team's position is defined by their slowest pairing, and while the first kayak was portaged, their partners were still out on the water.
Do sideways, do sideways. Mike, wait your team, and make the bounce. We wait up top, right there.
The kayak leg had seen a decisive move by Nokia Adventure, team number 1. They'd cover the 45 kilometres in 3 hours and 6 minutes, a full 12 minutes quicker than Beaver Creek's slower pair. The Finns moved up from 7th to 1st place as they left the water a minute ahead of Australian Beef, with Beaver Creek having to wait another crucial 30 seconds for their partners to reach the transition area.
Okay, take Libya.
Having been sitting for so long on a hard plastic seat, it was difficult to get those leg and back muscles loose enough to walk, let alone run. But the local dancers and musicians that featured throughout the day seemed to have a galvanizing effect on all of the athletes as they emerged from the water. Team Mild 7 were still comfortably the leading Asian team, with only Nokia Adventure beating their time on the kayak leg. As they set off on an 8-kilometre out and back run that would provide the most dramatic backdrop of the day, they were now in 6th place.
With little to separate Nokia Adventure, Australian Beef and Beaver Creek, the leading teams were going hard on the flat surface. But even they would have taken just a moment to enjoy one of the greatest sights of any adventure race. At the turnaround point at Tiger Leaping Gorge, the mighty Yangtze narrows to less than 20 meters, producing one of the most spectacular rapids in the world. The hypnotic sight of nature in all its terrible beauty was impossible to resist. Perhaps inspired by the sight, Australian Beef had increased their pace, pulling clear of Beaver Creek and Nokia Adventure. But the chasing pack were just seconds behind the leaders and showing no signs of letting a breakaway develop. After so long in the kayaks, the athletes' legs were at last beginning to loosen up. And on the return run back to the transition area, the rate of progress was noticeably quicker. As Australian Beef entered the transition area, Beaver Creek and Nokia Adventure were just a few hundred yards behind. Incredible racing after what had been already 100 kilometers of fast, furious action. With the race so close, the time spent in transition areas was becoming more crucial. It was important to get away as quickly as possible, but mistakes with equipment or miscalculations in rehydrating and refueling tired bodies could be just as vital with two tough legs still to come.
With Beaver Creek and Nokia Adventure setting out in pursuit of Australian Beef on the 31-kilometre mountain biking section, French team, EADS Bow number 2, including Olympic triathlete Isabelle Mouton-Michelis, were just ahead of the rest of the field, but 4.5 minutes behind the leaders. Venture 4 from the USA and K2 from Finland were making good progress as they neared the transition area, while Team Mild 7 came through just over half an hour behind the leaders and still in 6th place. As the team set off in pursuit, the undulating 31-kilometre road and trail course would take them back along the Yangtze. With a difficult final run to come, there were tactical decisions to be made. Should they attack on the bikes or conserve energy for the final push? For leaders Australian Beef, the answer was an all-out effort to gain a clear advantage before the final transition area. Pushing hard, Australian Beef had increased their lead over Beaver Creek to 2.5 minutes, with Nokia Adventure a further 30 seconds behind. As the quartet headed into the transition area for the final 10.5-kilometre run, they had cause for optimism. But with more than 1,300 metres of climbing to come, and with two elite teams just behind them, the racing was far from over. On a day that had seen some of the greatest competitive action in the history of the event, the best was still to come.
The first day of the outdoor quest had thrown down its final challenge, a tough, body-sapping 10.5-kilometre trail run to the finish. The distance was no problem, but after more than 8 hours of intense competition, the elevation gain was going to test tired athletes to the limit. With Australian Beef already on the climb, Beaver Creek were eager to get away as quickly as possible. Just behind them, Nokia Adventure were looking dangerous.
Guys, I'm ready.
Come on, Kirsten. You got your fanny pack on? Let's go.
I have my water, so let's go.
Everybody okay?
Yeah.
We got all kinds of water. Let's go. Hey, wait here for everybody. All four. Wait. Come on. Straight up. Hey.
Up ahead, Australian Beef are struggling, and Novak Thompson has dropped behind the other three. No team can start or finish a stage without all 4 members, and with other teams gathering at the transition, the race was now looking wide open again. The outdoor quest is a team event. Each team is only as strong as its weakest link. Knowing your teammates' strengths and weaknesses as well as your own is crucial if you're to function as a unit. Criticism and encouragement are all part of the game.
Very well.
Christian, drop it, man! Slow!
3,000 feet, just a minute. There you go. Good job. 16 minutes now.
Marching ahead strongly, a third-place Nokia Adventure. Petri Forsman has been in the winning team on the last 2 outdoor quests, so he knows what's required. As they reach the top of the final climb, 1,000 meters above the transition area, Australian Beef are in trouble. Kirsten Whirler of Beaver Creek is not far behind, and Novak Thompson is already being overtaken by the rest of her team. With the afternoon sun getting lower, it's clear that a number of the teams will not reach the finish line at Yunnan Temple until after dark. That means they'll all need torches on the final trail run.
I ate you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bonne
chance. Allez, allez, allez.
With the shadows lengthening, the final push was harder than anyone had expected.
Tough. Thank you.
Many of the athletes were discovering reserves of strength they never knew existed, as the challenge became a personal battle against their own limitations.
Come on, Mac Daddy. Dude, if I had some, I'd give it to you in a heartbeat. You ain't dying, you're looking good.
I feel terrible, eh?
I'm suffering.
We both suffering.
You're still smiling.
Yeah.
I always smile.
I see the end.
At the top, camera athlete Paul Huddle, a previous winner of the race, was providing welcome encouragement, as well as keeping an eye on his mild 7 protégés. Female athlete Honju was tiring, but her teammates were there to give her a helping hand. At the crest of the hill, it was still anybody's race. Venture 4 and Eco Internet were chasing hard as EADS Bow number 2 passed the tiring Australian beef quartet. But the race for the line looked to be between 6 and 1, Beaver Creek and Nokia Adventure. With only 3 members of Australian beef approaching the finish, Beaver Creek and Nokia Adventure were battling for the lead on the descent to Yeoyung Temple. With the finish gate in sight, it looked as if Nokia would get there first. But incredibly, after more than 10 hours of racing, there was still one more surprise to come: a sprint finish. Beaver Creek came home first, just 2 seconds ahead of Nokia Adventure, in 10 hours and 6 minutes and 45 seconds. For the athletes and the spectators, it had been an incredible day.
You know, here we were supposed to go aerobic the whole time, and then the last 2 minutes is like max sprint. That killed me. No, I feel pretty good. It's tight. Oh, 10 hours. That was great. I mean, the people are amazing here.
Conserve energy.
Well, you know, I was so far ahead of my teammates that I didn't push really at the beginning, and just when they caught us just before that last downhill, we started to run a little bit faster. So it was okay, because I could take it fairly easy. In the uphill, I felt really good, so I made up a lot of time, which is good, so nobody had to pull me.
We lost 2 of our engines today, and Kirsten was fabulous. She's the first one to the top for us. And then Dave and Mike were great steers in the boat. I mean, it kept us in the game. I mean, that's what's so fun about this race. It's a team race. And 1 minute someone's hurt, next minute someone else is hurting. You know, tomorrow they'll probably be pulling me.
Third place went to the French, Team EADS Bow number 2.
I couldn't believe China is so a nice country. Such a beautiful landscape, nice road, nice people. I love it.
While the first 3 teams showed the spirit of sportsmanship that makes adventure racing such a unique event, Australian beef had regrouped to finish 4th, with a tired but healthy Novak Thompson. Venture 4 were 1 place behind.
The toughest I have ever seen, especially the kayaks, it was brutal. We had to give everything we had, and also climbing this mountain. If I would not have these 3 guys, I would still be down there.
First Asian team, Mild 7.
Today we performed really well, although our female athlete did have some problems. But the support we had was wonderful.
As the sun went down, the moonlight saw plenty more teams coming in. Those torches were coming in handy. Finally, with the clock pushing towards 12.5 hours and the course in darkness, Team Friction Free, who had only met 72 hours earlier, came over the line together.
All right. We did really well together. We were all very good. We complemented each other in all sorts of different sections, and so we're happy to be finished.
Yes, we're glad to be here. In the official race.
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
Spectacular course, great day. Thank you very much.
Live for another day.
Thank you.
So, after more than 10 hours of hard racing, just 2 seconds separates the top 2 teams on the leaderboard, and there's less than 20 minutes between the top 6. Team Mile 7 are 13 minutes clear of Team Beijing Self-Discovery. Team Shanghai and World Spirit were unable to reach the final transition before the cut-off time. But on a day that tested the athletes to the limit, every team had reason to be proud of their performance. And there were plenty more surprises in store. Join us next time.